members of Project Spurs, except for Wesley. Wesley is, I guess he's an honorary member of Project Spurs already at this point. So we're going to be joined by Wesley Perkins, Jonas Clark, and Steven Anderson, which we haven't seen in quite some time. But you're a busy man, always covering everything. And if he's your go-to for everything that's going on with Big Brother. So make sure you go follow Steven. No, because he does great work with covering
Yes.
everything that's going on in the world of entertainment, specifically Big Brother, because that's the hot thing going on right now. So they need to make sure to go and follow you for all the updates on that, because everybody likes to watch some Big Brother. I know I do. So we're here to talk about
Goodness.
the San Antonio Spurs. San Antonio Spurs get a much needed win against the Sacramento Kings. The Spurs defeat the Kings by a final score of 129 to 120. I believe at now that the Spurs are 28 and 36 on the season. That means that with the loss, because Portland beat Memphis today, is that correct? Right? And
Yep.
the Jazz, they won yesterday against the Pelicans. That now the Spurs should be good enough to move up into that 10th spot out west. I believe that puts them exactly 2 games behind Portland in the standings, which they're closing in on Portland. So it can happen. They just need to keep winning. But I got to say, where in the hell has this Spurs team been all season? A team that is active on both ends of the ball, played defense really well. They pounded the glass really well. They were going after the rebounds, played really smart, hard-nosed basketball, team ball, shared the ball quite well. I mean, this was a fun team to watch. It wasn't methodical. It wasn't boring. It wasn't slow. You liked a lot of things you saw out there. And I got to say, to me, one of the unsung heroes of tonight's game has to be one Derek White, who took 5 charges and a chipped tooth to boot at that. So hats off to Derek White. He just played, I think, the best defensive game that I've ever seen him play as a San Antonio Spur. So I loved it. I loved everything I saw out of tonight's game. It gives me hope that this team can actually go on a run here and make a strong cause for, maybe getting that buy-in and getting that 9th spot to maybe play against the 8th seed. So let's go ahead and get with you first, Steven. Thoughts on tonight's game, sir?
Well, first off, it's good to be back with everyone here tonight. I have binged watched every single TV show you can imagine probably in the last 143 days. So it was pretty good to talk Spurs basketball again and be back. But thoughts on the game, guys. First off, you're right, Joe. Where's this team been since November of last year or this year or whatever it is? Anyways, that's how long we've been in quarantine. So, you know, we all, every Spurs fan, I tweeted this also, every Spurs fan has been wanting to see this youth movement for a very long time. And it took LaMarcus, unfortunately, getting hurt. It took Trey Lyles, who's not even old, but Trey Lyles took him getting hurt for this kind of to happen. And look what happened. You hit on the head, Joe. Derek White, huge game for him tonight. DeMar DeRozan. I mean, you would expect DeMar to play well anyway, but he didn't really have much of an effect until that fourth quarter. He really went off and took over, and kind of him and Derek White led the way. We talked about before we came on. Wesley, you and I said only one big guy played tonight, technically two, but one big guy played tonight, and that is Jakob Poeltl, who is one of my standout players tonight because he really did things that you probably would not even look at the stat sheet for. You would have to look at the stat sheet for, excuse me, to really see what he did. But and I even tweeted earlier, I was like, the Spurs' number one need is they need to re-sign him in the offseason. That is the number one goal this team needs to do right now. Not really so much DeMar, but getting and keeping and locking up Jakob, because the guy has proven time in and time out he is a fantastic player all around the ball, both sides of the ball. He's rebounding well, blocking well. He has the name Block Up Hurdle for a reason. So all that other good stuff is coming out. The negatives, though, Spurs are up, well, I think it was, 16, then a 19-0 run. They were up 16 points in that first quarter. And then we all knew it was coming. Growing pains with this new lineup, and they kind of just blow that lead, and it's close all the way to the fourth quarter. But what's different is you didn't see this team collapse in that fourth quarter when they easily could have done so. This team, remember, this lineup of Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker, Derek White, DeJounte Murray have never really played a lot of minutes together. So you would expect them to kind of collapse, have some growing pains, and there were growing pains in there. Obviously, you saw throughout there was turnovers that shouldn't have happened, all this other stuff we can get into. But overall, guys, I really, really enjoyed what this Spurs team can be. And if tonight was any indication of that, I think the future is very bright for this team.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And some of our viewers here, Frank Ramirez, he says, "How about them Spurs?" That's right, Frank. How about them Spurs? Tanya Peters says, joining us from YouTube, she says, "Hey Joe, are we sure this is good Spurs or ass Kings?" The Kings are actually a very good young core. We have had our issues with them this season, and that has been in regards to matchups. The length and their athleticism has seemed to bother the Spurs at times, and the Spurs were trying to find themselves almost the whole season. They started finally putting some things together right before the hiatus, and now we're coming into the NBA restart scrimmage. It was more about development versus winning. Tonight, I think it's still more about development versus winning, but as I stated to Jonas earlier today, Pop is going to put the young guys out there, and if they win, they win. That's just a plus. But at the end of the day, I love the fact that the young guns are getting some much-needed playing time and that experience, and what we saw tonight was a good, exciting young core that was playing great on both sides of the basketball. Wesley, what were your thoughts on tonight's game?
Yeah, I can't be surprised that they started off with a win tonight because let's not forget that they started this season off 3-0. The Spurs, one of the only two times they had that 3-game winning streak was to start things off. And, it's maybe to me the biggest difference tonight was a few things. You brought out Steven and Joe both. You brought out, Block of Pirtle. I mean, Jakob was a monster. And again, he's just one of those guys that you're not going to see. He's not going to dominate the score sheet, in terms of his points, and he's not going to average a triple double. But his blocks, his timely rebounds, his tenacity under the basket is really something.
His ability to set a pick is
Amen.
Amazing, man.
Amen. And let me tell you this: I think one of the main reasons why we could see this sustain is DeMar DeRozan let the game come to him. He didn't force the game tonight. And how many times have we gotten together over the length of the season and talked about that, ISO ball that never works? And yet here was a team tonight, and this is partly with just being able to have a younger cast of characters that have a little bit more spring to them. And seems like someone with the initials WP has been saying that they needed to play DeJounte Murray and Derek White together. Hello. Welcome to the world of defense, baby.
And
those
two
fellas can play.
No Bryn tonight.
Yes. And, I just...
Hey, now.
And no Patty. We had no Patty either. So no Bryn, no Patty.
But we did have Marco, and that's not a good thing. Nonetheless, the thing that we just saw tonight was a changing of the guard of sorts, but efficiency. If you weren't watching every moment and just looking for it, you wouldn't realize that Lonnie Walker had 16 points tonight, and they were a very clean 16 points. Down the stretch, a big time shot off the glass. A big 3-pointer when the game was still in the balance. And then, as pointed out, you had DeMar DeRozan just come to life and really in the second half start to dominate and put his stamp on the game. And I think
high
part
scorer
of
the night too, Wesley. Let's not forget.
Amen. 27 points, I believe. But the thing is that he, I think, had the energy because he wasn't forcing things in the beginning of the game, and those young guns gave him the ability to still have the life left in his legs at the end. Another unsung hero, just briefly, Rudy Gay. I know he's played real well in the last few scrimmages too, leading up to this, but he was huge off the bench as well. All in all, huge win, big win. But it's only going to matter in these 8 games if they continue to have that occur going forward, because obviously they're playing catch-up mode to try to catch the Portland Trailblazers and at least get into that play-in scenario. So great win, dudes.
Yeah, great win. And we're going to go ahead and go and pitch over here to now Jonas Clark, who is a big-time Bryn Forbes fan. He has some good points, though, about Bryn Forbes. He's always telling us, that if we were to lose Bryn Forbes, we would lose, those points and those buckets that he does bring to the team. And he has a point in regards to that. What we don't get from Bryn on a defensive end, he brings on an offensive front, but not to, let's say, he doesn't shoot lights out enough for Spurs fans, even though he is one of the better shooters on the team at 40%, I believe is what you were saying, Jonas. So thoughts on tonight's game? -1 Bryn Forbes, -1 Patty Mills, but plenty of Marco.
Okay, let's look at it this way right off the bat. You don't need Bryn Forbes on a night that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 other players shoot better than 50%. Better than 50% from three, and you shoot 44% as a team. I mean, you really don't. But that's not going to happen every night. You know, it was great to see Derek White go 4 of 9. That's huge. Something we rarely get to see. That DeMar DeRozan 3-point shot, which NBA.com did not give him. He might have had a toe on the line, but the broadcast called it from 3. It was good for me. Thank you, Wesley. I appreciate that. But you guys wonder, where has this team been? It's been in Austin getting ready for this moment. Okay. I had to deal with some people on Spurs Twitter tonight that are like, where was team development this whole time if that's their movement now? And look, guys, when this season paused, and went on hiatus back in March, we were just about 2 weeks removed from the rodeo road trip. 2 weeks removed. So we had just started. Pop usually waits till around that mid-month of, the middle of February, early March to start calling up his G League guys. That's how he's kind of handled it the last 2 years with Lonnie Walker as well. If you want to go back to him and Chimezie Metu. And that's when he started to really give them a little bit more run because he wanted them to develop in Austin. And so we were just starting to see the young guys get called up. Keldon had made a couple appearances. Quindary and Luka finally started to join the team for a couple of those late rodeo road trip games and started to get some actual minutes where we saw them on the court for a minute or two. And then the season took a pause. So right then was really where I believe Pop was getting ready to start incorporating these young guys and pull for the youth movement back then. Now you have an actual serious attempt where I think the math was at the end of March when the season stopped, or in the middle of March when the season stopped, we had a 1% chance to make the playoffs. Now with the 9th seed being included in that kind of play-in game or play-in series, it's best 2 of 3 with the 8 seed. I think you see that number go up a little bit more. And then you're also playing games against other teams that are actually in contention for those spots, as opposed to teams that just may or may not have had an opportunity to be competing for that playoff seeding in the West. So this gives us a much better chance to make it, and you still see the team's commitment to running that youth. And that's really what you saw, that balance of youth and veteran experience, and maybe not quite veteran experience, but experience altogether. Lonnie Walker, a full year in the NBA now, I consider that more experience than what you see from a Keldon and from a Quindary Weatherspoon, who definitely earned his opportunity to get some more minutes tonight during the 3 games in the scrimmage. So when you ask where it's been in wait. It's been in wait, and it's been waiting for this kind of a moment. And you get to combine the youthfulness, the energy of the Austin guys, those 3 guys, 4 guys, 5 guys that come up when you consider, your 2-way contracts as well. But when you get those guys up there and combine them with your Derek Whites and with your DeJounte Murrays, and you're actually giving them run not with each other, but starting to blend them into the actual roster, you see what you saw tonight. And you saw a different version of DeMar DeRozan tonight, too. One who did have 9 assists in the first half and distributed the ball very well, and then also found his spot in terms of a scorer in the second half.
Yeah,
and
no doubt.
That's a perfect blend of the youth meeting veteran experience and culminating in a win this evening.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to say something real quick here. I wanted to shout out to some of our viewers right here. Tim Rodriguez, he says, hey Joe, good win. Spurs, good win with the Spurs tonight. Still no party though. Frank Ramirez, what's up, Frank? He's always been a very good supporter of ours, all the way from Cali. He goes, Spurs just working on a new blueprint, but future looks good. Tim Rodriguez also says he meant no Patty tonight. Clint Proctor, of course. Hey, he goes, pinkies up, fellas. Pinkies up, Clint. He's always with Texas Tech Red Raiders. Something that is near and dear to you, Wesley. And also Rudy Campos Jr., our good friend, he says he's 1-0 on his 2-6 predictions so far. Christopher Summers says, honestly, Spurs need to stay in lottery. Just don't think beating Lakers since every game hasn't been close. Okay. But well, moving on here, I'm going to go ahead and go down the stats roster and just go and look at a few stats here that really stood out at me. Lonnie Walker played 32 minutes tonight, had 16 points. DeMar DeRozan, 37 minutes tonight, 27 points. Jakob Poeltl, 31 minutes. He had 7 points on the night. Derek White, 33 minutes is what he played tonight. And he had 26 points, I believe it was. Let me get back to my stats here because all of a sudden
26 points.
My sausage fingers hit the hit the keyboard here. So I lost my train of thinking. Let me go ahead and get back. Okay, so we're at Jakob Poeltl, Derek White, DeJounte Murray, 21 minutes, 11 points on the night. Rudy Gay, 26 points, 26 minutes, 19 points. Keldon Johnson, he played 30 minutes tonight, only had 8 points. Marco Beninelli, 15 minutes, 9 points. Eubanks, 2 minutes, 2 points. And Quindary Weatherspoon, 9 minutes, 4 points. What does that tell you? All in all, a lot of the young core that Spurs fans have been clamoring for are getting some run out there on the court, and it's amazing to see. The team is faster, more athletic, fun to watch. They're playing great team basketball, and as Jonas had pointed out, because of the inflection that we have of this youthfulness out there on the court and the high energy at which our younger players are playing at, it gets the veterans that much more excited, and it seems like they play tougher as well, which is what we saw tonight, a total team effort. I really liked everything I saw out there. You can't say enough good things about what's happening tonight. You just hope that this goes ahead and keeps moving forward. They can gain momentum off of this and get the next win, get that next needed W. I believe they play, was it on Sunday? I think it was on Sunday. Is that correct?
Memphis, yes.
Right? And I believe that game's an early game, too. It's not a late game. I believe that one's, at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think all the rest of their games are early games, honestly.
They had one more late game, from what I remember on the schedule. Okay. Tomorrow's, well, not tomorrow's, but Sunday's game against Memphis is at 3. Then they play, that's the other late game, Monday against Philly at 7. Then they play Wednesday against the Denver Nuggets. That one's at 2 o'clock. They play Friday against Utah. I mean, you talk about a nooner. They play at noon against Utah on Friday. New Orleans, 2 o'clock. Houston, that one starts at 1. And Utah is what they're going to close the season out with on next Thursday, on the 13th. That game has yet to be announced as far as the time slot goes. But thoughts as far as them gaining momentum and moving forward, do you think that this team is going to go like Jonas predicted, 6-2? I said 4-4. Wesley, Steven, we need to get your predictions. We'll start with you, Steven. What are your predictions? What do you think the Spurs are going to do?
Well, they've got one, so that's good. I mean, look. So here's the thing. Looking at this, I think that in order for the Spurs to even get to that 9 spot that we've been talking about, they need to beat the teams that they're competing against in those spots. So Sacramento, for example, tonight, that's a good start. Memphis on Sunday, that's a good start. And even though you have, I think you said, Philly on Monday, is that correct?
Yeah, Philly's on Monday because they have a back-to-back. Memphis is on Sunday,
Okay.
Philly's on Monday.
Okay. So when you play Philly, of course, you want to get the win, but also you're going to need some help from one of these other teams. But none of this really matters unless the Spurs take care of what they need to take care of. The other teams could lose, but if the Spurs lose their games, it's for nothing. And we saw that. We kind of saw that earlier when we saw Portland getting the win, and we're like, well, great, but if the Spurs don't win, it's pointless. If this game is pointless. So I think the Spurs. What did you say, Wesley? What was your prediction? 4?
4-4 is me.
4-4. Okay.
Yes.
I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say 8. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna say. I'll say about. I would probably say 4-4. I'm not. I think they have what I saw tonight. this team has a very good core, a very good capability of winning games that they were maybe not capable of before. I mean, they beat Sacramento and were up handily on Sacramento early, something they were not at all doing during the regular season with the other guys. So I think 4-4 is a reasonable prediction. Will they get them into the 9 seed in the playoffs? Who knows? But I think 4-4 is a realistic prediction.
It's going to get interesting. Let's just say it like that.
Yeah,
And I
for
think
sure.
that some of the games that they lose, maybe, were going to be very close games, things that can happen in the final minute or two. I'm gonna attribute that to more of the inexperience of the youth. But I do take away that regardless of what happens, the outcome, if they make it in or they don't make it into the playoffs, the saving grace and everything here, the silver lining is you love to see this young team getting much needed experience because they are the future. And the more minutes they get out there, the more experience they get in real game situations, especially during that crunch time, during that, second half of the third quarter, in the fourth quarter, in those critical, pivotal, moments of the game. That's just going to make them grow not only as individuals, but also as a team, because you need to go through those struggles in order to get better. So I like everything that I'm seeing right now. If they make the playoffs, I'll be ecstatic. If they don't, I'm not going to be too disappointed. I'm still going to have fun watching the games and watching the team grow. And I know that the future is going to look bright for us. So in closing here, any thoughts you'd like to share, Jonas?
I think that this team is strong moving forward. And really quick, 6-2 is my prediction for this, moving down the stretch. And I think that we lose games 4 and 5, those middle 2 games in this 8-game stretch. And it's just because I think we're going to win these next 2 games too. We're going to go on a 3-game winning streak, and then we're going to be brought back down to earth. But that's kind of what goes along with youth. They get hot and they get cold, and it's a measure of consistent inconsistency.
Yep.
And so I think that we'll match up pretty well. One of the things that's going to be most interesting is going to be, as I said earlier, on the Friday Night Takeover, a show we did earlier, where I think that it's going to come down the stretch to how many teams that are already in position, like the Jazz, like the Sixers, that start to rest players. Even though it's only 8 games, they do want to make sure they have their superstars going into a playoff run. And if they're already there, they can try to do the conditioning and practice and maybe just the first quarter and maybe third quarter of games, but not giving them the full run. So there's a chance out there. But the one thing that stood out to me, Joe, and I'm glad that when you were going through the stats that you mentioned this, it's the minutes.
Yeah.
All season long, only 2 players on the Spurs averaged 30 minutes or more, and that was LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan.
Yep.
And everybody else was down there in the lower 20s, mid-20s. Even Jakob was like 16, 17 minutes per game. And so to see even a guy like Keldon Johnson get 30 minutes of run, he only put out 8 points and stuff like that, and that's okay. Joe, I'm getting a little echo here. I don't know if that's something, but he only put up 8 points, but it's what he did on the defensive end. He had 6 boards, so he was still very active. Even that really smart assist down inside to DeMar DeRozan as they kind of played, hot potato with the ball there. That was a great possession. And if they can continue to build upon this, let their youth, don't go in thinking, we're too inexperienced. Don't go in thinking we don't belong here, but just build on this game and go into the next one. I'm really hyped for it. Marco went out, he got injured tonight. We don't know what his condition will be for Sunday. Thank goodness he has a day to rehab. And just for depth, not for the fact that I really want to see Marco Bellinelli out there. But we could start to see maybe the return of a Patty Mills out on the floor and how that affects the lineups. When Patty didn't play any minutes in those 3 scrimmages, is he ready to come out there and contribute? That's something to watch moving forward. But, if you're trying to make a run with 8 games, you got to start off with a win, and the team did it tonight. So hats off to them. It was a great effort. They wanted it, and you could see it.
Yeah, no doubt. So in closing here, Wesley, you got anything you'd like to say before we go ahead and call it a night?
Yeah, I think the key, truthfully, guys, moving forward is how the Spurs handle these next 3 games with the length that they're going to face. Every one of those teams that we just mentioned a moment ago, the Grizzlies, the obviously the Utah Jazz, and the 76ers all have a very strong, big athletic lineup. And if there's any time that I know tonight's like, hey, look at the youth, they're doing really well. We look really fast, look really springy. But those are the games where you would tend to miss a LaMarcus Aldridge because you don't have that post presence, slow the game down against some of those bigger guys, the Joel Embiids and the Goberts who tend to plug up the paint. And
even the Valanciunas.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that's going to be part of it, but listen, I just kind of dissecting some of the things from tonight's stats, Joe, and some of the things that we mentioned. They actually ended up even in rebounding, which is, I'll take that any night, especially with the smaller lineup that the Spurs are putting out there. But one of the huge assets was 32 assists and only 15 turnovers. That's still a 2-to-1 ratio. And yet the Kings were at 22 and I believe, 16 turnovers, or 17 turnovers. So, again, if you're going to win those two parts or at least come out even in the rebounding, I like the Spurs' chances moving forward in any of these games. And it's going to be a tussle. I think they're going to need some of those younger big bodies to come in and play some minutes in these next 3 games, especially. But I'll tell you this: I will go against my 4-4 prediction. If they can win, if they can go 3-1 in these first 4 games, I'm ready to state that they'll end up in the 8th seed. If they come out of these first 4 games and they're in 2-2, 4-4 looks likely, and you've done a service to get your younger guys ready to go for the next phase, and you're starting to see who you can take forward and who you need to contract and all those things going out of this season. So I think at this point you're not losing any. Somebody said that online. You're not losing any traction. This doesn't have anything to do with the draft status, so you're not losing any traction. It's all gravy. So Spurs fans, be happy. This is a great win. If we make it to the 8th seed, great, and the streak continues. If we don't, then you know what? Let's enjoy the ride and the NBA being back up, because I don't know about y'all, but just seeing NBA games again makes me really happy and seems to take some of the apprehension out of the air.
Yeah, it makes me extremely happy too to see NBA action back on the television, and not only that, but it was great hearing the commentary, from our local Bill Schoening, and hearing, Sean Elliott and Bill Land, go out there and call the game. I miss that. It's familiar. It's something that you're used to and you take it for granted, especially in the current state of things right now. So it was good to get back to things that are familiar, So in closing here, Stephen, anything you'd like to say about tonight's game?
No, I mean, you guys said it all perfectly. I mean, I think the Spurs have, like I said, the Spurs have a very good chance in the future based on tonight's game. Now, is it one game? Of course, it's only one game. But, Pop put, and I don't, correct me if I'm wrong here, guys, but Pop put in Keldon Johnson for defense in this game to guard De'Aaron Fox. We didn't see him do that in the past. So that's a sign right there that, he's trusting Keldon Johnson. We all know Keldon Johnson, the 8 points off the bench tonight. He's somebody that I think none of us, or maybe not even the Spurs themselves, are paying much attention to right now. They're most focused on Derek White, Lonnie Walker, and Keldon Johnson getting those minutes tonight, I think is only going to help his confidence. He hit 2 big threes, corner 3. He's good defensively. He could be a really, really massive find for this Spurs team moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. So we're going to go ahead and bring the show to a close on that end. Before we do, we'll go ahead and go around the horn here. Wesley, where can they follow you on social media?
Yeah, check me out on Twitter at Wesley Perk. I wanted to give a shout out to a story that was put out on ESPN today about Reggie Williams, former linebacker from the Bengals, who was really instrumental in getting the NBA and the wide world of sports and so many youth programs together right after his playing days. And it's a really good read. I had nothing to do with it. It's just a share, but it's something that I found especially interesting that got us to this point where we're able to play basketball amidst the COVID stuff. So at Wesley Perk, love talking sports and anything, and even a little band if you want.
There you go. And Jonas, where can they interact with you on social media?
At Jark Clonas on Twitter, JARKCLONAS. Anything Spurs, especially now that we're back, but specifically the Austin Spurs, who I cover for Project Spurs Network. and really excited. New piece coming out tomorrow. I know I've talked to a handful of people about this, where I'm really excited about this piece because as we've come to the Orlando series, you get to, Spurs fans and Spurs Nation is getting to see some of these young guys that I've been really focusing on since last October, which I'm with you, Steven. It feels like 10 years ago. Where I've been really getting to see these guys, and the whole time where, Spurs fans have been like, where's Keldon? Where's Luka? Stuff like that. They needed that time in Austin, and I think that now we're starting to really see the fruit of that. New piece coming out tomorrow is how the Austin Spurs have really helped complete the Spurs puzzle moving forward, how they've restructured after the hard years of 2016 and 2018, losing Tim Duncan, losing Kawhi Leonard, Manu, and then going on to in 2018 to lose Kawhi, Manu, and Tony Parker all in the same summer. That was a really rough summer, really brutal, but they've restructured. And now they built an edge to their puzzle. They started to fill in the middle, and now they have their centerpieces. Look for it tomorrow. Project Spurs. I'll have it out on my Twitter at JarkClonus. But I'm really excited to share this with everybody.
There you go. Make sure you go ahead and read Jonas's new article that's coming out. I'll go ahead and retweet it on my personal Twitter page, and you can follow me at Two Shots Podcast, all spelled out, TWOSHOTS Podcast. And Steven, where can they follow you on social media?
All right. Well, you guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram.
Wow.
Like I said, been a long quarantine. Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at the Stephen A _. I'm actually working on this the game recap for tonight's game as we speak right now. That will be up in the next 30 minutes or so, maybe. And then SAFC also is back. Their season it kicked off last weekend with a win. They are playing tomorrow in Austin. At least we're thinking they're playing, because who knows with COVID, it could be postponed any moment. But I mean, as right now they are playing, so I'll have coverage of that tomorrow night as well. And yes, Joe, as you mentioned at the top of the show, Big Brother will be coming back next Wednesday. So I will be between Big Brother All-Stars next Wednesday, SAFC, and Spurs. My Twitter is going to be popping, and it's going to be a fun time. So come on and follow me. It's going to be fun.
Steven,
you know what I'm looking forward to, Steven, though? I got to tell you, because I blame you for getting me and my wife hooked on it.
The Circle?
The Circle, man. I can't wait to see the new season of The Circle.
2021.
Yeah. I'm like,
Steven,
damn you, Steven. Damn you, Steven.
my favorite Steven tweet of late was the one where he had the epiphany that everybody pees in the shower. I'm like, well, that just means athlete's foot is way down.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
There's some things that shouldn't be said. All right. And on that note there with Wesley's really nice little, story, we're going to go ahead and bring this episode of the Spurs Takeover to a close. So for Steven Anderson, Wesley Perkins, and Jonas Clark, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you guys for watching another episode of the Spurs Takeover. And make sure you go and follow our good friends over at Project Spurs as they cover everything and anything that has to do with your San Antonio Spurs. So make sure you go ahead and check out the great content that they have at projectspurs.com. On that note, guys, we'll talk to you all later. Thank you guys for watching another episode. And we're out. Peace. Go Spurs, go.